Greetings to all of you. In this discussion, we are going to discuss something about the elasticity of demand. First of all, we want to understand what is this elasticity is all about. See, we know the theory is called the law of demand. When price increases, automatically the demand will decrease. Vice versa, when price decreases, demand will increase. That is a curiosity that if price increases, how much the quantity demand decreases, or if price decreases, to what extent my quantity demand increases. The curiosity to identify or quantify the proportional change in demand behavior is what we call as elasticity. We have different kinds of elasticity: price elasticity, income elasticity, cross elasticity, advertisement elasticity, and so on and so forth. So, in this discussion, primarily we are going to discuss something about price elasticity. What is this price elasticity is all about? Due to change in price, how much extent my demand is changing. If price increases, to what extent my demand are changing, or if price decreases, to what extent my demand is increasing. To quantify that with respect to price is called elasticity of price or price elasticity. We have a statistical formula to identify the price elasticity. It is not difficult to understand what is price elasticity is all about. The formula is elasticity is always denoted by E. Elasticity, this what we are going to discuss here is price elasticity. It is denoted by EP. Elasticity of price equals to percentage change in quantity demand divided by percentage change in price. Simple formula. Numerator, percentage change in quantity demand divided by percentage change in price. This we are going to compare with 5 different elements. That is, this answer or solution, what we are getting out of this formula, percentage change in quantity demand divided by percentage change in price, will be with a 5 different outcomes. It may be equal to 1, equal to 0, equal to infinity, greater than 1, or less than 1. So, how we can predict this? How we can quantify the proportionate change in demand? Come, let's see in this discussion. So here, the definition of price elasticity of demand. The change in quantity demanded of a product due to change in its price is known as price elasticity of demand. Thus, sensitiveness or responsiveness of demand to change in price is called elasticity of demand. In a simple manner, if any changes in price, how it reflects in the demand. So we know that very well. If there is a change in price, definitely there will be a reflection in demand. How much the reflection happened in demand? To quantify that, this price elasticity of demand will help us to quantify how much demand changes with respect of price. Clear? So, as I said earlier, there are different kinds of price elasticity of demand. Majorly, perfectly elastic demand, relatively elastic demand, elasticity of demand equals to 1, relatively inelastic, perfectly inelastic. Let's see in detail. What is perfectly elastic demand? What is perfectly elastic demand? See the diagram x-axis and y-axis. There is no change in demand, but there are some changes in prices. See, when demand for a product changes, increase or decrease, there is no changes in price. It's known as perfectly elastic demand. Once again, when demand for a product changes, increase or decrease, even when there is no change in price, irrespective of price, or slight variations in price, there is increase and decrease in demand, which is called as perfectly elastic demand. What is relatively elastic demand? When the proportionate change in demand is more, there is a small change or minor change in price, but relatively more changes happened in demand. When the proportionate change in demand is more than the proportionate change in price, then it is known as relatively elastic. See, 1% change in price will lead to 1.5% change in demand. So relatively elastic demand. Elasticity of demand equals to 1. The proportion of change will equals to demand and price equals to 1. The proportion of change in demand equals to the proportion of change in price equals to 1. That means the same percentage of increase in quantity demand and same percentage of increase in price equals to 1. Okay, there will be the same proportion of increase in price as well as the demand. What is relatively inelastic? Inelastic in the sense there is no relativity. Elastic in the sense there is a relativity. Inelastic in the sense there is no relativity. When proportionate change in demand is less than the proportionate change in price, then it is known as relatively elastic. Irrespective of changes in price, it is not much affecting the demand. Yes, of course, there are some changes in prices, but demand is not that much affected towards the price. Then that is called as inelastic. The demand is not much reacting towards the changes in price. That is what we call as relatively inelastic. And by the same time, perfectly inelastic. When a change in a price, however, the large changes, no changes in quantity demand, then perfectly inelastic. When a change in price, howsoever large change, no change in quantity. Whatever the price increases, there is no change in demand. Perfectly inelastic. The price is not affecting the demand at any cost. So, ladies and gentlemen, once again, just for your remembrance, what is price elasticity of demand? In a simple sense, for our better understanding, whatever the price increases, related to which, how much the demand is increasing or decreasing. To quantify that, this price elasticity plays an important role. The formula to identify this price elasticity is EP, elasticity of price equal to percentage change in quantity demand divided by percentage change in price. So this will help us to understand the different kinds of elasticity of demand. The different kinds of elasticity are perfectly elastic demand, relatively elastic demand. Elasticity of demand equals to 1 and relatively inelastic demand, perfectly inelastic. So here we want to understand what is this elasticity is. Elasticity is having an impact. Inelasticity is not having an impact. So the first two things, perfectly elastic, relatively elastic, is having some impact over the demand. The last two, relatively inelastic and perfectly inelastic, is not having much impact over the demand. And in between, there is a unit elasticity. The equal proportionate change in price will lead to equal proportionate change in demand. It is denoted by proportionate change in price is equals to proportionate change in demand equals to 1. Clear? So, in our next discussion, we will discuss something new about supply. In contrast to this demand, the supply also plays an important role. If you understand the demand part in a clear manner, it is very easy for us to understand what a supply is all about. Stay in tune. We'll see in the next discussion.